Oh my goodness. All right. I messed it up. All right, everyone. Welcome back to C Sharp Corner live show and to a brand new episode of C Sharp Corner MVP show. I'm your host, Stephen Simon, and I'm really excited and looking forward for this episode as we have a very fantastic, young, and talented guy walking us into this live show here. And let's before I go ahead and introduce his magnificent bio that he has it, let me go ahead and let's talk about a few of these shows that we run at C Sharp Corner. And so if you are someone who are joining us for the very first time, we run this Azure AI show on every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern and 8:30 p.m. Indian time zone. It's the show that I run it, where we talk about the entire ecosystem of ML that Azure has to provide. We talk about low code, no code. We talk about how you can go ahead and run your machine learning models on Azure, how to better build your services. That's all we talk about in that show. And then on Wednesdays, we have just the way today is Wednesday, we have the C Sharp Corner MVP show featuring one of the community leaders, and that happens every Wednesdays. Then on Thursdays, we have one of the very famous shows that runs. I think we are close to episode number 26 or 27. That's Ask Me Anything show, where we invite some tech leads, where you can go ahead and ask them any questions related to any technology, and also have some very cool demos. And then on Fridays, we have growth mindset. If you want to go ahead and improve in your career, because life is not just about coding and writing lines of code, making programs. If you want to succeed on how you want to go ahead in your career, you want to go ahead with that show. And I think I had a typo in that growth mindset. It's okay. Never mind. And on the Saturdays, we have Rocking the Code World with .NET Dave. As you know, David is, I think, closely like maybe 15 times Microsoft MVP, and he runs that show. He has some amazing guests in his show, from program managers to some directors at Microsoft. So that those are the cool shows that we run. And let me go ahead and pull up the bio for today's guest. Let me just find it out. Let me just find it out. I mean, today's guest is Daniel Gomez. Okay, just where did I put it? Oh my goodness, my internet has gone down. All right. Today we're going to talk about .VVM, and this looks very exciting to me. And preferably, if you come from a C# or programming background, this show should be very exciting to you. Yeah. So we have Daniel. Daniel is a Microsoft Gold Student Ambassador at Microsoft. He is a .VVM developer advocate. He leads Microsoft User Group at Ecuador and Microsoft sorry, I can pronounce that. He's passionate about technology for the benefits and for the society. I'm so excited to have this. He's a Microsoft student partner, and you can just see how excited I am to go ahead and talk about what he does in that program and what he's going to cover today. So let's go ahead, and without any further ado, let's go ahead and invite our guest for today, Daniel Gomez. Hey, Daniel, welcome to the live show. You're muted. Oh, Daniel, you're muted.
Hey, hi everyone. Hi Simon. It's a whole pleasure to be able to be here in this amazing space at MVP show. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you so much for you accepting the invitation and for all the contributions that you do for the community. And looks like you are not only Sharp Corner MVP, but even before that, you are a Microsoft Student Ambassador. That looks very fancy, and you are putting up a very amazing T-shirt, right? So before we talk about all these programs, so Daniel, where you are joining us today?
Sorry?
Where you are joining us today? Which location? Which part of the world?
Okay. I'm joining in this case from Ecuador. In this case, in Latin America region.
Oh wow!
So yes, there is no more people in this case in this region in the C# corner, I guess.
Yeah. Not. I mean, during live shows, we have had few speakers from that part. I mean, we have had from Chile and all that, Sao Paulo, Brazil, that part. Yeah. So it's kind of we are making presence over there. So it's great to have you, Daniel. So Daniel, you are a Microsoft student partner, right? So it looks kind of a very fascinating program. So tell me what you actually do. How do you go to college, and what is this program all about, and what do you do actually in there?
Yes, this is an amazing program. Now it's called Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors. Only change the name in this case, but it's the perfect opportunity to share with other people around the world, acquire new knowledge because Microsoft gives some technologies, well, in this case, some tools to acquire new knowledge. For example, credits to use Azure, Visual Studio subscription. And the best part in this case is the opportunity to interact with many people around the world because there are many students in this program and all students can acquire new knowledge, and together in this case we can achieve more because we can exchange knowledge between us.
Yeah, definitely. It's an exciting program, and I've been very fortunate to be a part of that program too, somewhere in 2015 and 16. Now looks like I'm getting very old now. So, Daniel, you are a college student, right? I think since you are a Microsoft Learn Ambassador program, that is a program that is actually for graduates and people who are studying in universities and colleges. But at the same time, you're also a C Sharp Corner MVP, which is again a professional platform. But I see you being a student have been able to get the C Sharp Corner MVP award. And when I go ahead and look at your C Sharp Corner profile, it says that you have written close to 20 articles, and your article has been read by around 58,000 times or more than that. So what's with this? You have gone ahead and started writing articles. What's with that?
Yes, that part is amazing because I'm a student. I in this program, and also have the opportunity to be an MVP in C Sharp program was amazing. For example, I remember when I was notified. In this case, it was unbelievable because in my case, one important thing to mention is that my native language is Spanish. So
Okay.
I started writing articles in English to learn this language, and
Mm-hmm.
but I never imagined that I was going to name a C Sharp Corner a month later to start with these writing articles in English. So
Mm-hmm.
I will remember the news, and I take my by surprise. MVP in C Sharp Corner. It's an amazing experience in this case.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, one day you just wake up and you check an email that says that hey, you are an MVP. So all of a sudden you're all just happy with that. Hey, I'm an MVP now, and not just Daniel. You have written 20 articles. I also see you have four of your articles have been featured at the Chef Corner, which means it has been written very nicely so that people are more and all reaching it. And you usually talk about .NET, Azure, and ASP.NET Core, right? So Daniel, what are we actually talking about today? I mean, what's the stuff? I mean, what do we have any demos or do we have slides? What's with us with next 30, 35 minutes?
Everything that. My favorite technologies in this case is developer technologies with ASP.NET and Azure too. So in this case, we will have some talk about these technologies. Also, we will have demos in C# Corner platform that people like. One demo
Mhm.
in particular in this case. So and I will show you the magic behind this example of one of these articles, and
Mhm.
also yes, some examples to acquiring knowledge in this amazing session.
Yeah, and I remember when you talk about .vvm, I do remember I did had Thomas who actually I think he's the founder of .vvm, right? I had him on one of our C Sharp Corner AMA show, and I'm just looking at his what an amazing technologies you guys are working at, what an amazing framework to go ahead and get started. You being a student, so Daniel, I won't take much of your time. You can go ahead and start sharing on screen, and let's look for the exciting stuff coming up.
Okay, share my screen.
All right.
Let me a moment.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. Yeah. Guys, I've been thank you
uh,
guys who have been commenting for my fabulous look. Not many people see that, so thank you. Thank you for that. Right. Mm, okay, perfect. So Daniel, you're in
Okay.
which year? You're so second year, third year, final year student. What's with you? You're in which year of your graduation?
Sorry?
You're in which year of your graduation?
Yes, in the next months, I'm currently doing my degree work to
Mm-hmm.
take the title of system engineering. So I hope in a few months to start in this case in 2021 to
Yeah,
get
and
the
I and I definitely believe you're going to tell me that you love online morning classes,
title.
isn't it? Online morning classes. Oh my goodness, kids have been complaining a lot about these online classes. Okay, Daniel, I have your screen with me. You can go ahead and move to your slides, then I'll pull it up into the live show.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen now. I'm turning off
Perfect.
my camera to have a better connection. In this case, if you are okay with that.
Sorry.
Uh, in this
Yep, it's
case,
perfect.
yes, my camera to have a better
Okay, yeah, you
transmission
want to
of
do
this.
this? Perfect. That makes fine. That's totally fine. You can do that.
Okay, can you see my screen?
I can definitely see your screen. I can see your screen. Perfect. Roger that.
Awesome. Okay, let's get started. So, okay, to introduce this amazing topic, let's start by talking about .NET in this case to start. .NET is an application development framework created by Microsoft. This framework allows you to perform application of all of kinds, from desktop programs to web application or console programs too. .NET is not limited to a single language, but the developer can choose one from several languages such as C Sharp or Visual Basic or even JavaScript. The innovation behind .NET is to integrate all Microsoft development tools, libraries, languages, technologies, proposers on the same framework that is useful to the developer or the company needs in this case. In this way, without going outside the context of .NET, the developer is able to build anything or even integrate systems that must work under different execution environments or different deployment services. In this sense, .NET introduced a unified platform in its ecosystems to support building literally anything from desktop applications, video games, and cloud applications too. So also, we can use tools and editors such as Visual Studio, Visual Studio for Mac, Visual Studio Code. Using the command console or any other component environment can be used with .NET. In this case, our case goal is to use .NET Core to develop web application with Visual Studio 2019. Now, if we talk about the tools and controls available for making applications with .NET, there are several tools and applications like the ones we see on the screen. These tools make it easy for use building applications by using the already established control and components. For our case, we will use .vvm to construct views on our web pages. So in this case, one concept important to know is about the defining the parent MVVM, that is the model view model parent. The purpose of this parent is to try to decouple as much as possible from the application logic and the user interface. For these, three parts are handled. As the first point, the model. The model represents the data layer or the business logic, also referred to as the domain object. The model contains the information, but never the action or services that manipulate it. In no case, for example, the model has any dependency on the view. In the other hand, we have the view. The view has a mission to represent the information through the visual elements that compose it. Views in this pattern are active, contains behaviors, events, and bindings to the data. In other words, the view is responsible for displaying the data to the user and allowing the manipulation of the application data. And finally, we have the view model. The view model is the intermediary actor between the model and the view, contains all presentation logic, and behaves like an abstraction of the interface. In other words, the view model or model view is responsible for implementing the view behavior to respond to the user actions and for easy exposing model data. One of these technologies that implements this pattern is DotVVM. DotVVM is a framework of ASP.NET open source that allows users to create web applications using the model view model pattern using only C# and HTML. The .vvm goal is to simplify the creation of web applications through its built-in controls such as grid view for table handling, file upload for updating files, validator control for validation on forms, for example, and other web components. An additional things to mention is that .vvm is part of .NET Foundation. This organization aims to improve open source software development and collaboration around the .NET ecosystems. Currently, .NET Foundation already has more than 50 projects in which .vvm is included. All right, now that we see all that concepts, let's see what we have to work with .vvm and ASP.NET Core in this case. First, we need the SDK to be able to work with .NET Core. Then we need the development environment. This may be the one you want, for example, but I think in this case, it's of to use Visual Studio 2019 for this case. In this tool, if we use that, we will need the ASP.NET and the web development workload. Finally, we will need the .vvm extension for Visual Studio 2019, which we can find in the marketplace of this tool, for example, or in the link that you see in the screen. Okay, with this in mind, now let's move on to the practical part. So we will have a first demo to learn about how to build a small website for list people records on a page through ASP.NET Core and .vvm. In this case, to handle the ID, first name, last name, and the type of user. Here to exemplify, we will have a type A and type B of users. So, considering the model view model parent, within Visual Studio, we will have 3 projects. For the model part of this parent, we will have 2 projects. This in ASP.NET Core to handle the data access layer, that is the database connection, another to work with the application logic. For views and view models, we will have a project with .vvm. So go to Visual Studio in this case. Yes, we are here. And in Visual Studio, we already have established the first 2 projects, which corresponds to the management of the data and the corresponding operations. In one hand, we have the data access layer project, in which we have the relationship of the features in the database. For example, here is the DB context to connection to the database. In this case, if we look here, we have the configuration method where we have the connection string to the databases is located in this part. In this case, the string should not go this way, but for the moment we will leave it like this. Also, from here, we refer to the person entity in this case, for example, with the attributes that mentioned before, ID, first name, last name, ID, person type, and also the person type in this case. On the other hand, we have the project of the logic layer for business. So we will have two parts, in this case, the services and the models. The models, in this case, represent the information that we want to display at the web interface level. On the one hand, we want visualizations, in this case, for example, the detailed person. We need to use the ID, first name, last name, ID, person type, and also the name, person type. Also, we need, for example, the list of the person type. And also in this part, we have the services to work with the data in these entities. For example, in the person service, we have the methods, for example, get all persons, in this case, get all of the list of the person registered in the database, or var ID, or var ID and or person type, and also, for example, get all person par ID. In short, the methods we need to be able to view the user data on the page, in this case. Now, to start, we will create a .vvm project to create our web pages. So to do this, we go to the solution and click right and add a new project. It's loading. All right. Since we're working on .NET, let's look for a project of type .vvm web applications. In this case, we can find here, for example, and we have these three type of projects. In this case, we need to we prefer to work with .NET Core. Here we name the app. In this case, I put it PL referencing the presentation layer. When we try to create a project, the .vvm wizard will show us a previous configuration that we consider. For example, adding styles and scripts as resources, or a premium component, for example, Bootstrap for .vvm or .vvm Business Pack. Also, we have samples pages, for example, authentication or group page. In this case, we will leave it, and it's for ourselves to make the configurations. And well, we create a project. For this, in this project, for example, we have several parts. For example, referring to the model view model pattern, we have here the views and view models, and also some configurations. For example, in this case, about the startup and .vvm startup. So in this project, we must refer to the other two projects, these two. So the first thing I do is set this as a principal project. So that's a startup project, and referring the other projects. Project reference. In this case, the first, because we are going to use the DB context for the data access layer, and the VL because we are going to use the services to handle this data. Okay. So other thing to do in this case is referencing the services and the DB context. To do that, we can go to the startup, and in this case, we have a configure services to refer to to these to these classes in this case. Let me one moment. One moment more. And okay. So we have aquí, in this case, some services, and we have one more services dot add patient, and in this case we will use in this case person services and person type services. These two. Using the namespace and also the same way to the person type service. Okay, and also we need to refer to the DB context. In this case, we will add a similar sentence to add these services. In this case, we are working with SQL Server. So in this case, the thing is work with Entity Framework is SQL Server. Entity Framework, SQL Server. And a DB context. DB context is the name. Yes, there's this DB context. That namespace using the model.dal. Okay. With this, we are ready with the configuration in this case. So to start and seeing that everything is working, we will run this project. Okay. While loading, in this part, we can now proceed with the design of web page to list person data through the views and models of the views. So to verify this process, the project is running. Okay, we can find our hello world from .vvm. With this result, we see that everything is correct. So far, okay, the template is here from the website design. So the first thing we will do is specify our own CSS style source. These styles or any elements media will be located in the www root folder in this case. And in this case, we will specify our own styles. To do this, we will go to the www folder, and here we will paste our CSS styles. In this case, I have this style is here ready. Here's how, okay, now we need to specify this file to our project, these styles. So we need to specify, in this case, in .vvm startup. Here in the styles, if you look here, we are registering this resource here and the path of this file. In this case, the name is styles. And also is ready. Okay, this thing must be now specified on the project homepage. To do this, we will go to the views part in this folder. And here we see two files, the master page that corresponds to the principal page, and then we already have the other pages, the shield pages that in this case refer to the default, for example. So opening the master page, and here, for example, we have the base format of page in HTML, the header, the body, and in this case, in the header, we have the title. For example, we can put here Pearson, and also, for example, the .NET required resource for the styles are here. This is the name, the styles that referenced in this register in the .vvm startup. So in this case, for example, we can have a shield pages with this sentence, content placeholder. In this case, this child page will be main content. And in this case, we can go to the default HTML file to see the shield page. In this case, we can see the hello world that can see briefly. And in this case, if you see here, .content, we have specified a shield page in this case. So we can eliminate this to have an example. And also, in this case, this is the view. We can refer to the view model in this case. And the view models are here. In this case, the default view model, we have the title, for example, hello from .vvm. We can delete it. And the first thing is to refer to the service to obtain the list of users, for example, to have a table with the user registered in the database. So let me check here. Okay. In the first part, for example, we can define a collection to have the list of person. If you set, this is a component, this is a control of .vvm to have a table, for example. And in this case, we can specify that this is a type of person model. So let me import. Initialize it. Okay, other things we need to is to refer to the person service, in this case to the business logic, to get the list of users. Okay, import this using, and here in the constructor we can specify and initialize this person service. This case, this, okay, and we can do that because we can do this because we refer this person service on in the startup. Remember here the person service, so we can inject in this case in the view model. And one thing more to need is to initialize this table. So for this, we can refer to the render method that is to set up all configuration before the page is loaded. So in this case, write the method. So persons, items, you can assign with the person service. Get all persons, for example, this is a method in the business logic to obtain all the persons. So with our view model specify, in this case, we can do the view, we can establish the designs for the corresponding websites in this case. So in this case, we can go to the default.html and here proceed with the refer to this table in this example. Let me check. Okay, one of the many controls established by DotVVM is a grid view to show a list in this case. So this is like an HTML tag, for example, dot, and here we can see the other controls. In this case, we need a grid view. The data source, in this case, the source to the person is the collection that we define in the view model, this collection persons. Okay. Also, we can define the columns that we can show. And this is another tag to refer to that. In this case, for example, grid view text column. And we refer to value binding to specify the attribute that we can show. value, in this case, for example, ID, and also show a header text in this table. And also with the other parameters, for example, for the first name, the last name, and for the name person type too. Okay. An additional way we can specify in this case is to show a message in the case there is no user registered in the database. For this, we can refer to the MPT data template, for example, and show a message, for example, there are no search results, for example. And this is all. Yeah, in this case, we have defined our table. So Ron, to see that. Okay, in this case, we can see our first table to list the person user registered in the database. For time, I will show you the rest of this demo because only have a minute more. And in this case, this is the demo. Let me load it to show you. Okay, for example, in this same project, for example, we have the grid view as we've seen previously. And also we have other components, for example, a text box to find a user, a specific user, and also, for example, a button, a checkbox component. That is amazing because we can also specify these attributes, for example, the values in the view model part. For example, in the default view model, we have additional attribute, for example, one string for the ID search, and for example, value boolean to show and hidden some information. And we can also specify more additional methods, for example, to do other things. So in this case, from the project to see the final result about this demo, there are many options in this case to work with this type of applications. Okay, this is the table that we have previously seen. And also, for example, we can do other things. For example, show only the users about tape A. This is loading. Okay, in this case, I only remove this sentence. For no show, for example, the records when the page is loading. Okay, it's loading. Okay, there is no search results, so we can see, for example, only the user of tape A. A moment, okay, and also, for example, see that tape B2 only type B, and also search a user. For example, we can search Steve Jobs. Him ID 7, and search this record, and we can show the functionality in this case. So for this example, I hope you can see that the concept about views and view models in .vvm. In C# Corner platform, there is also example that the people like in this case. Thank you so much for this. The other example is, for example, we can do a dashboard, for example, to handling some data. In this example, for example, to handle the user information. This is the article on the C# Corner platform, and the demo is here. Let me show you. User dashboard. This demo have the same logic. In this case, we have three parts. For example, the models, in this case, to handle it, the connection with database, the logic business, and also the other two parts, the views and view models, as we can see here. In this case, for example, in the views, we have not also the master page with the principal page, in this case, the HTML format. I have more shell pages, for example, in fact, CRUD operations, for example, to create a new record. For example, in this case, we have a form, and also more .vvm controls to handle this information about on building controls, and also in value bindings to handling this data. So to show this, to finalize this part, we run this demo. This is very useful because you can adapt this project to your requirements. Okay, it's loading. Okay, the dashboard is here. For example, we can play with CSS styles and make this type of applications. So, for example, to add new user, we have a form in this part to create a new user, and also, for example, to search a user, and much more. Let me see. No, for example, in this case, we can see the detail, edit the user, and okay. For example, we can rename MVP show. Okay, and this is an example, for example, of Azure we can do. Okay. To review the final part about Azure, in the next 5 minutes, we return to our slides. Okay, now let's learn how to deploy our .vvm web applications with ASP.NET to the Azure cloud. As we have seen in the last minutes, .vvm is an incredible framework that allows you to create web applications on ASP.NET with components already made and ready to be used. One of the things I really liked about .vvm is the good integration it has with Visual Studio and how it can help us build web applications by just knowledge about HTML and C#. And one thing that also makes .vvm an amazing framework is the number of things we can do. For example, we see the dashboard, and also in this particular case, let's see how to publish our applications to Azure. And before we get started with this last demo, I'll introduce you to Azure. Azure is a set of cloud services for building, deploying, and managing applications in a global network of Microsoft data centers. At Azure, we have a huge amount of resources and services for different purposes. For example, for the issue of cloud computing, web and mobile application management, data analytics, the Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence, and much more. In all of these areas, we could make applications with .vvm, for example, host web application on a virtual machine with Ubuntu or Windows Server in the cloud, create a page that allows you to recover the data from a sensor, for example, within the Internet of Things area. And so we could continue to mention more examples of the day. In our case, the objective is to publish our websites quickly and easy so that it can be accessed from the Internet. For this goal, we need to know two Azure resources in particular. Okay, for example, before to mention that, we can access to Azure. We have two options. For example, Azure for students, and also Azure for free for the general people. The links are here. You can access to a free account to use Azure, and this is the links. Okay, about the resources, for example, the first resource is Azure SQL Database, which allows you to work with relational databases. If suddenly you know a SQL Server, in this case, it's the same thing, but in the cloud. And since we're talking about the cloud, in the SQL database resource, we can find certain cloud features like scalability, monitoring, alerts, among others. Something very interesting too is the integration that the resource has with Visual Studio, which in a way can make our lives easier when building our applications. The second resource we need to know is Azure App Service, the most important one that will allow you to host our .vvm with ASP.NET Core, in this case, application in the cloud. Azure App Service allows you to build and host backend, front-end, and web APIs application in any programming language without managing the infrastructure. So we can do this type of application on app services. And just say about it, let's look at an example to deploy our application. So in this case, we can go to the Azure portal. And at this point, the database is already created. And what we are going to do is create an app service type resource to host our application. To create this resource, we must have an Azure subscription. In this case, also we can find the app service resource that we need to deploy our applications and add this resource in this section. This is loading again. Okay. As I mentioned, the first things we need is the subscription, Azure subscription, and also that we need to specify the resource group. For example, .vvm demo. This is we can group all resource relationship in a same resource group. Another thing is the instance details. In this case, for example, the application that will be accessed later, for example, the first we need to specify the name. So we can be able to access through the name .azurewebsite.net. So, for example, MVP show, example, VVM, MVP show, for example, runtime stack. In this case, is .NET Core 3.2.1, and also thing to mention, for example, every people is talking about .NET 5. We can also deploy .NET 5 applications through the early access. Only to mention that. In this case, it's .NET Core 3.1, and the operating system can be on Windows, and also the app service plan. In this case, we can deploy our applications in a free plan. Okay, with that, we can create. We can find in this section one review to check that everything is fine, and also we can create the resource. This process usually takes approximately 30 seconds.
Then, just in case all that is happening, it is taking time for deployment. I just wanted to ask, you have covered the entire ecosystem, right, starting from scratch and everything. How long it took you to go ahead and create this demo part?
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
I said, you have covered the entire ecosystem, right, from starting from very scratch, and now you're also deploying it. So I just wanted to know how long it took you to go ahead and create this demo while you were learning it.
This is so fast. For example, if you, as we can see in this case, is only second minutes to learn, only minutes to learn this because we only specify the parameters to create the resource. In this case, the name of resource, the stack. For example, in this case, is .NET. It can be other stack, for example, Angular, Java, PHP, sorry.
Perfect.
And
looks like your deployment is completed.
Yes, and only to check that everything is fine. In this case, we can see the template of this resource. And here we see the hello world or Azure Strap template that tells you that the resource is working properly. So to end, the only thing we need to do is deploy our applications. So the this demo about this. This demo. Okay, the only thing we need to do in this case on Visual Studio 2019 is go to the principal project, in this case, this project, and here we right click and select the publish options. This option, publish. To hope several seconds. Okay. We can delete this profile. Yes, and we need to specify a profile to publish. And so in this case, we can start. And in the target, we select Azure. We can specify other types, for example, Docker, or in another cloud services, but in this case, it's in Azure. On the Azure App Service, remember that we specify Windows. And here we can select a resource that previously created. In this case, is DotVVM at the show. We can also create the resource from here, but I wanted to show the process from the portal, but we can do this from here. And also we need to select this resource. Okay, all we have left is click in publish, and the process will start. This can take some time, the first time. It all depends on the speed of the internet and the size of the projects. In this case, I will not deploy the project for the reason of times, but I will show the results that I have already prepared. This is the result. VP show demo.vvm, Azure websites that is, for example, in this case, select the type A users and list the users here, and also search that users. The only things that's changing in our projects is the connection string. That in this case there is no string in the local database. That now the string connection is in Azure, and this is in the DB context here. For example, server in the database on Azure, and the parameters in this case. And this is all. Our application is working on Azure to access it from the internet. This demo in this case. So with that, this is all about. I wanted to share you about how to create applications with .vvm in ASP.NET Core, and how to deploy it to Azure.
That's perfect, Daniel. What a complete demo that you had it. My goodness, you started from the very beginning. You created a new project. You created all the database stuff. You just compiled it, build it, uploaded it on Azure. I mean, you did all that in almost like 45 minutes. Fantastic, Daniel. That was an amazing session. To be honest, I've never seen a young guy like you doing all that great stuff. You definitely deserve not to be just a Microsoft partner, not just be a C# on MVP, but going forward, we would love to see you being a Microsoft MVP too, which I definitely believe you are going to go ahead and grab that. So, Daniel, let me quickly ask you, with that amazing demos and presentations that you had, right? So, what do you think? What are the challenges while you were preparing for the demos and while you did it, while you were learning? What were some of the challenges or the problems you faced while working with this .vvm, and what you would suggest that, hey, that needs to be improved?
Okay, in this case, for example, we can continue talking all the day about building demos and amazing things in this case. But for example, about the issues, normally always is about the connection with a database, for example, with the entity framework, yes, and these issues usually. So in this case, the best part is, for example, that I do in everything. Let me share again the screen that it works usually.
Mm-hmm. Let me have
Share
it. Let me have
screen.
it.
Okay, share. Can you share? Can you see right?
Yeah, I can see it. The VS Visual Studio.
Okay, one thing to shake what's wrong in our projects is, for example, the run options. The default option is to use the EES Express, but
Mm-hmm.
we can also deploy from the .NET console in this case. So we can change that in Visual Studio 2019 and run that.
Mm-hmm. Uh,
So
Daniel, is it possible that all that you have done inside this Visual Studio, no? And we have seen, and even you witnessed during the demo, right? It kind of hangs, right? I know this is an amazing idea. I've been using Visual Studio from, I think, from last 2013, the version. But nowadays people like to move into Visual Studio Code and all that stuff. So is it possible that all that you have done that can also be done using Visual Studio Code? Is it possible?
exactly in Visual Studio Code 2, or when another development environment, for example, if the people use Linux, we can
Mm-hmm.
use Visual Studio Code or the Notepad too.
Yeah, definitely
Yes,
works fine
there is
there
no
too.
problem with that. So, for example, in this case, we can see the logs uh, about the deployment. And when we load this page, we can also hear, for example, the SQL sentences and
Mm-hmm.
other issues. For example, foreign key, for example, we are vulnerate the attributes in the database, for example, that information show here. And for example, let me do the one consult on the database. Is loading. For example, we can see the SQL sentence, and this is one way we can do to shake our fix our problems and solve it in a certain way.
Definitely looks fantastic. I mean, that's an alternate to go ahead and do it, right? And using not that first option to do it. And is there any GitHub or something that you have, so someone can go ahead and check the source code? Is there any way with that? Have you deployed it anywhere? I mean, hosted on GitHub?
Yes, oh, there are so demos in GitHub, and
Yeah.
also the demos it refers on the articles in the C# corner articles
Okay,
in my
this one,
profile in
right?
this case.
Yeah, I think you just showed it, so I
Yes,
brought this link.
for example, this dashboard that people like this,
Mhm.
and other. Let me check the demo that we show you
Mhm.
is here too. For example, reports in .vvm with grid view checkbox and text box controls. The link is, let me share with you in the chat.
You can put it in the private chats.
This is the article that I learned today. For example, there is other article about Azure. Let me check.
You have been writing a lot of articles, yeah, and I see it. Definitely, you're a cloud advocate for .vvm, you're an MSP, you're an C Sharp corner MP, what not you are at a very young age, Daniel. So that's amazing.
That technology is amazing. So there is
Mhm.
many things to learn and play
Mhm.
with that.
That's great. That's great. And I see when I went online and I went to this Microsoft partner community, and I just found that you're very active over there too. People know you a lot there. You have been doing a lot many offline events before that, and now you go ahead and speak in many other online events. So definitely, you are a remarkable community contributor, and I think going forward, we would see you in many more online events. And when things get better, maybe in Microsoft Build, definitely I know some MSPs do get MS build offers, but let's see how things goes. So that's amazing, Daniel. Thank you so much for your time. I think it's time for us to wrap it up. What an amazing session it was. Definitely, I believe people were not expecting this to come from a boy who is so young and dynamic. Thank you so much for your time, Daniel. I love your t-shirts, and we're gonna share you some C Sharp goodies too. I'm gonna reach you out on the emails, and thank you so much for Daniel, and we would love to have you back whenever you're available next time, maybe next year, and definitely meet you in person. Thank you so much, and take good care of yourself.
Thank you so much for to you, and it's a pleasure to be participating in this space. And also, thank you so much for every people that join us today in one
Yeah.
hour and more. And from my side, everything you need. If you need a recommendations, you need help, you can contact me on Twitter, for example, and exchange knowledge and exchange those and together
Yeah,
achieve more in
go
this
ahead and
space.
follow Daniel on Twitter. He's very active over there. Go ahead on Twitter, LinkedIn. Bring some more followers to him. All right, so guys are
Yes,
saying good job, Dan. Rafael is saying good job, Danny. That's good. Thank you for that. All right, Daniel, we'll conclude. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you very time soon. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
thank you. Bye. See you soon.